Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
The homie.
She held a spot for me out in Milwaukee, but I fell asleep on her.
What?
What?
I'll explain in a second. We got the homie Tezlyn Figaro. Welcome back.
Tezlyn Figaro.
Thank you.
Explain Milwaukee. What the hell happened in Milwaukee?
Well, it was Hip Hop Week in Milwaukee. Remember Dave Mays came up here and we talked about Milwaukee. There was a big award ceremony.
You didn't go?
I went down there and I did the financial literacy part. And then after, I was supposed to go to the award show, but I fell asleep.
Oh, man.
And they said they had my little picture on my little seat and all that. But I missed out. But how was that event?
It was really good.
Hip Hop Week in Milwaukee.
Really, really good. Shout out to Scarface doing Hip Hop to the Polls. That was really important. Did a hell of a speech. He was talking about the elephant in the room. So you would love that commentary.
What was the elephant in the room?
About racism. He was talking
okay.
about it's important if you're going to run for office, be in political office, call out the elephant in the room.
Absolutely.
So he did a really, really good, phenomenal job with that.
Do you think the Democratic candidates, because that's the only person we expect to do that nowadays, do you think that they're doing a good job of that right now?
Probably not. My thing with the Democrat candidates, obviously we know we have a debate coming up this week. Thursday. Yeah. I think the best thing for Democrats to do is stop sending your best representative. You know, the thing is now is let's just hide Joe. Let's not let him interview, say this, say that. The worst thing, a fear for people is have a candidate run for this long because they show their flaws.
Yeah.
And so I think what's most important is to show the most imperfect person we can vote for. Everybody is imperfect. There's nobody perfect. And just be honest about it. One thing about Trump, like I said last time I was here, he's Suge Knight, period. Gangster, all the way through. You talk about him, he doubled down. He says, you say something about that the second time, he triples down. So in order to beat somebody like President Trump, I think it's important that you say who you are. Number one, just doing a quick fire round. Kamala Harris, you lock people up. We all know this.
Absolutely.
So market that. I lock people up.
Lean into it.
Lean in. I lock people up. I'm going to lock up Donald Trump's ass.
That's it.
Like, be real clear about it.
That's it.
It's no point in trying to be something different. Not now. If we want to talk about her record and we want to criticize that, I don't have a problem with it. Joe Biden, say straight up, hey, I locked up a whole bunch of black folks, and I had a lot of black people that supported me. The CBC supported him in those efforts. I'm a big, as you know, talk about the crime bill all the time, 94 crime bill, but admit it, adjust it, apologize, correct it. Running from it, trying to be somebody different.
Justifying it.
Yeah, it won't work.
Right.
You know, the fraud season is over with. When we talk about at least Mayor Pete, when he was up here, I was watching an interview. Just say, hey, I messed up, period.
That's it.
I didn't get it done. A lot of people respect that opposed to being something different. Bernie Sanders, just go ahead and admit you prefer class over race.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
You know, you can say March Martin Luther King, that's fine. But if you go look at his clip, he marched Martin Luther King because of what Martin Luther King was doing with the Poor People's Campaign.
Issue.
That's correct. Nothing to do with race. He'll never, it's not that he's racist or doesn't understand racism, but he's always talked about class. He will always talk about class. And that's just what it is. Don't try to make it be something that it's not.
Can we fix racism, though? Because when I think about class, I think Martin Luther King Jr. was trying to change systems. Like, Malcolm Gladwell was up here, and he was just talking about that. But, like, that's what Martin Luther King Jr. tried to do. He tried to change systems because you can't really change racism.
Yeah, you can't change racism. I mean, diversity training doesn't do it. You know, going around hugging people doesn't do it. Singing Negro spirituals doesn't do it. You know, you can't change it. You change the system in itself. But again, my issue is, and this is me, you know, working for the guy, focus, be who you are. You know, don't try to act like all of a sudden you all about race when you've never been all about race. You know, so you've always been about class. Be about class. And then can I say one thing that probably no political pundit will say it? Can I go ahead and say fuck Willie Brown? Is that okay?
Hey,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay, I mean, just I want to say this.
Kamala's old boyfriend, right?
Right. Yeah. I want to say this, and don't start tweeting me saying I'm standing up for Kamala. I'm supporting nobody. But I do want to say that because I think it's important that, first of all, Willie Brown gets called out for being weak, you know, for talking about their past relationship. I think that's wrong. I think it's hella disrespectful to his wife, who he's married with, who he was married with then. I think for him to talk about his sex life and talk about panties opposed to politics is weak all the way around. I know nobody's really saying that in cable news, but I can say it here. I think it's just highly disrespectful. And when you talk about her running and to be talking about her past relationships, I just think somebody needed to call that out. So
Right.
thank
I
you
agree
for
with
That's some
letting me say that.
sexism in a lot. That's sexism. in
It's
the right way.
absolutely who does
You know
that?
how many of these male nominees have all kinds of things in their past and nobody's bringing up?
Right.
It's not relevant.
Now it's happened before, but this is definitely sexism.
Right,
'Cause
but
no-
who does this though?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
man
yeah.
does this? I dated you back in the day. I just think it's weak, and I think if we want to talk about her issues and talk about her prosecutor background, I'm here for that. But to
Right.
talk about who she slept with and all of that, I just
You
think
shouldn't
that's
even have a
weak.
platform.
Absolutely.
Can we
not.
talk
So I
about
wanna say that.
the classism over racism thing though? Like, let's expound on that. Like, what is that? What does that mean when you say Bernie was classism over racism?
Well, I think I don't necessarily want to say he doesn't think that one is more important than the other, but that's always been his platform. He's always talked about once we deal with class, once we deal with income, that things will be evened out, that people will have a better opportunity. But like you always talk about it all the time, it's not just about us having a job and making more money. It's about the systems that are in place that constantly keep putting us in positions, whether we're looking at criminal justice reform, whether we're looking at healthcare, the lift all boat tides thing. You
Yeah.
know, if
Rising
my
tides
boat
lift
is
all boats.
already
Yeah.
down here and you're up here and we're lifting, there's still nothing to cover the gap. So
Black people both got a hole in it.
absolutely. So I don't want to say that he doesn't understand it, but if you look at over 30 plus years of what he's talked about class. And if you ride with that, then rock with it. You know, it's no point in being something different than you are. Elizabeth Warren, same thing. You know, I know you gave her a hard time about her Native American. I'm from Oklahoma. A lot of people don't know that the Oklahoma state flag is Cherokee. I mean, it is a Native American state.
A lot of people have Native American in their back, or were told that they do.
Absolutely. They told me my grandmother was 100%
Right.
Native American. I believe my grandma. You know, so
Did you ever get your DNA test to find out?
no, I did not.
Right,
Nor did
so
I
you-
list myself as a tribe. You know, my Aunt Barbara is a part of the tribe, but I didn't write it on, any paperwork. I didn't say I was Native American. You know, so she should own up to that. But I think she should do a better job of explaining it. You know, when she was here and saying, oh, well, when you asked her, were you a Republican? Oh, I just wasn't into politics. Well, yeah, you were. Oklahoma, every county is Republican. So if you come from Oklahoma, more than likely, you have some conservative values. So just say I was a Republican and now I switched up. I know better, so I'm doing better.
Right.
So I just think these candidates trying to get around and skate around certain topics, it just won't work.
So you understand why people don't fuck with politicians and feel like
Absolutely.
everybody's lying all the time.
Absolutely.
A
I
lot of
always
people
say
feel like-
pimps, pastors, politicians have a lot in common.
That's right.
PPP.
But a lot of people feel like, they don't necessarily jump into politicians so early because it feels like everybody wants to be a Democratic candidate for 2020 at first, right? And then you just let them all fall down, and then it's like this is like the second wave of now let's see what's really going to happen. A lot of people look at politics like that.
Well, I think, and one thing I always say, Trump was the best and worst thing that ever happened because people are paying attention. It's a reality show. People are either we're paying attention to the daily chaos, that he brings to America, or we're looking at candidates a little bit differently. This is the same Joe Biden that was the vice president before. I'm looking at what's the confusion. This was the same guy before, but now he's being vetted. So now people have more questions. And the reason why I always say pimps, politicians, and pastors, even though there's good folks in all of them, there's some good pimps out there too. But the constant me, you, us selling. They do speeches where they talk about themselves and they talk about you and they talk about us and how we're going to change the world. And I think people are just over that. Authenticity is what's best. And the more people can say, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, allow people to decide what they want to do. Right now, black women are undecided. 26% in the Essence poll said that black women are undecided. We don't know who we're going to vote for.
Wow.
So you just can't assume, that it's going to be Kamala Harris, or can't assume it's going to be Joe Biden. You're going to have to kind of earn our vote. We kind of a little tired of being the mistress.
Did you know Joe Biden wanted to send his surrogate up here? What was that guy named, Eddie? I can't remember. I think it's Cedric something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember. But he wanted to send his surrogate up
I
here.
believe it. The last time around in 2016, Bernie Sanders wanted to send his surrogate to Roland Martin and to send surrogates. Remember the last time around before you did the town hall, his surrogates were coming around. So
You're right.
more and more, and this is why I appreciate what you guys are doing. This is my most important constituency, not MSNBC, not Fox News, because the more and more that you make these candidates hold themselves accountable to come talk to our base, when we talk about hip hop, we're talking about 18 to 54, not just millennials. We're talking about a huge demographic,
right.
every race, every background, genders, the whole thing, LGBT. To ignore this base, they're learning and learning more and more. Than it's just not only is it ignorant, it's unwise.
Now, I want to make sure we get to what you're here for as well, which is the March for Donald Neely that's happening on September 15th.
Absolutely. This is really important, and thank you for having me on here. You talk about mental wealth. Donald Neely is a mentally ill black man in Galveston, Texas. A lot of people don't understand that Galveston, Texas is where Juneteenth started. You know, the holiday that everybody talks about, Juneteenth, about the slaves being freed. It actually started in Galveston, Texas. So to see Donald Neely, people may remember the picture of him being tied to a rope and led by a horse being arrested. That policy, number one, is designed for crowd control. There was no crowd control issue. The chief has now adjusted it and taken it off the books, but it's still important that we say, okay, Donald, we riding with you. A lot of people, and even me, I've criticized marches. You know, what are we marching for? Well, the same way that we say we're not past kneeling, we're not past marching either. You know, there's two folds to this. One, working on a solution, but also making the public aware on exactly what is going on. I want to be clear about Attorney Benjamin Crump, who I'm his spokesperson on this particular case. And there's a big misconception about him, Charlamagne. A lot of people, I know in the comments, oh, look at Benjamin Crump, once again, he ambulance chasing. Let me get this straight for him. He never talks about himself, but I think it's really important. Number one, he doesn't ambulance chase anybody.
Right.
People call him to get involved with these cases. Number two, he has not lost any of his civil matters. A lot of people don't understand that he's a civil attorney, not a criminal attorney or for the state. When Trayvon Martin's case was lost, there was a state that lost that case. Benjamin Crump has not lost his cases. So if you ask the family who has represented them with dignity, integrity, and put their case on blast, they will say Attorney Benjamin Crump.
Right.
There are civil attorneys all over this country who make closed deals, back-end deals. I know, I've been at the table. This is my third case with him. And they say, you know, let's just talk about it on the side. Let's not make it public. What he has done, he did the Johnny Cochran. He made it, put the media involved so that we could see the entire thing from beginning to end. And had he not done that, you know, the recent case with the Florida Stand Your Ground with Marquise McLaughlin, where his killer was actually convicted, nothing's changed in that law. Stand Your Ground is still the same as it was with Trayvon Martin. But
So why did he
now,
get convicted?
because the jury is educated. The
Gotcha.
jury now is educated. If Trayvon Martin never happened, if we weren't taking out our phones, if we weren't putting stuff on blast, the jury wouldn't know to convict. They had the same instructions that with Trayvon Martin. So I think history, unfortunately, people have to pass and move on for history to really serve them appropriately. But I think it's so important to talk about what Attorney Crump has done, not just for criminal justice, but a whole new way of how we deal with the issue. Even with this Donald Neely case,
Yes.
you know, you have people who are in support of the police to say, you know, a march is not worth it. You know, let's just deal with it on the side. You have, when you're dealing with these types of cases, you have family dynamics that have to be dealt with. Typically when someone is deceased, there's a lot, you know, that goes on with that. You have to deal with white supremacy. You have to fight, you know, the people that you're actually fighting. You have to fight the people on social media. You have to, I mean, you have everything coming against you all at once.
Let's talk about the Donald Neely case
Yeah.
and the specifics of what happened. So they knew, the police officers knew him. They knew he had a history of mental issues. He was bipolar.
Right.
I believe?
And I want to be clear. When I say he has mental issues, I'm not talking about functional mental illness. I've met him myself. If you were to see somebody homeless on the street and how they suffer a lot with schizophrenia, those types of things, that's the level of mental illness that he's dealing with.
word.
This is not just, oh, you know, he's just having some problems with anxiety.
Depression, anxiety.
Yeah, no. These are serious mental ill issues. It is clear as day. That's what you'll see on the tape. That's what we're asking for, to release the tape. But it's not just, you won't see him getting beat up or shot or those types of things. But what you'll see is somebody who is mentally ill that is latched to a rope.
Being led by two men and two horses.
Why was he arrested though? That's what I didn't understand.
Trespassing.
But he was just in another neighborhood.
He was homeless.
Right. So is that
Period.
trespassing?
That's
if I'm walking around the street, is that trespassing? He wasn't on private property.
Well,
was he?
that's what the problem is.
That's
and
crazy.
he was also charged with that as well. One of the that's another issue that we have. One of the requirements of them dropping the charges says, oh, if you just come complete this class, we'll drop the charges. But he's not mentally capable to do that. So again, that's where we talk about our criminal justice system, the things that we're requiring people to do to jump through hoops. You know, when they see us came out and everybody was so, oh my God, I can't believe this happens. I can't believe this happened. I was shocked because I know 5 dudes right now, you know, that's been through solitary confinement. If you don't know 5 people that you can name right now that's having any type of mental issue from anything going on, I can name Spud, Calico, L Baby, Rich, and Spook. Right now, all in wheelchairs, all the way from 50-something years old, all the way to 20-something. If you can't name 5 people right now, then that means that you have not been in touch with your community. Mental health, not just in general or our daily mental issues, but we have a lot of people in our community that are really, really suffering. And I noticed that a lot. You know, I talked about last time with Spud being shot. I noticed that we don't talk enough about what's happening with the homies on mental illness. You know, what happens when they're locked up? What happens when they come home? When Nipsey was shot a month before that, Spud was shot. But you never talk about who was left alive? What about the guys that got shot with Nipsey? What's going on with them?
Right.
Are they dealing with any type of anxiety, any type of depression? A lot of these guys, when they get the mental health, and I hope I can come back and talk about that in February, mental health for the homies, an event that I'm doing, because a lot of these guys that come out and
Why you didn't invite me?
I am going to invite you.
Oh.
I was planning,
It's in February.
Plan on inviting you. It's in February, and it's mental health for the homies. And the reason why it's so important is because a lot of these guys that come out and talk to them in these rehab centers are people that, are paralyzed from maybe a fall or a car accident, something like that. There's really not a support system for people that have been injured through gun violence or domestic violence or drugs, that can talk on a level that they can understand. Secondly, their support systems have zero support as well. Going through Spud's time in the pen, if you were down with anybody through their time being incarcerated, through coming out, and then now paralyzed from the pen to paralyzed, not only is it a big charge for him, but also for those of us who support him.
Right.
And so those conversations need to be had when we talk about mental health. And that's why Donald Neely was so important to me. I've worked on 3 cases with Attorney Crump. All of them have been people who were living. Monroe Bird, who was shot and lived, but he later died. The 13 black women that were raped in Oklahoma City, that was also my case that I worked with him. And then Donald Neely. So we never talk about the living. We got to fight like hell for the living too. It's not just about marching and singing and all that. We showing up to say we here, we riding with you. We gonna walk down the same streets where slaves were freed, to remind the public that yes, you are free indeed. That's important that Donald Neely knows that.
Right.
His family got to know that we riding with him. It's not, y'all just marching. No, it's not about that. It's making it known on the public. No behind the scene closed deals. And to the presidential candidates, some of their staff has reached out, and I told them the same thing. Unless you saying something public, the conversation never happened as far as I'm concerned. I'm not interested in talking with you to get to know you, to get a job, and such and such called me. No, if you're not saying it publicly, if you're not making it known publicly, then the conversation never happened.
I want to go back to what you said about the prisons, because prisons are big business, and they're supposed to be correctional facilities, but they're not correcting these people. Like, they're putting them in these situations. They go to solitary confinement, they get PTSD, they come out traumatized, and a lot of times it just leads them to go back and do the same things that they were doing before. That leads them right back into prison. So there's no money in rehabilitation when it comes to giving somebody mental health treatment or anything like that.
It's absolutely not, and it affects recidivism. It also, even if somebody doesn't come back, not having the structures set up to deal with, first of all, you have to go through, at least a lot of these men don't even realize they're dealing with PTSD.
Word.
So I've had a lot of conversations like, no, when you're sitting by the door and look and can only go to a restaurant and sit one direction, that's called, PTSD.
Word.
When you always looking around and worried about that's PTSD. So a lot of it is just getting them to understand with the issue. Shout out to Bone from LA, who's also been working a lot with me on this mental health. So just getting them to understand, July 4th, firecrackers around, people getting nervous. Right, yeah. Absolutely. And then depression, after doing 15 years, what did you expect when you came out? You expected so much more. You expected so much more support. Men who have to go get jobs, all of those things that you deal with. And then the health. When we talk about Medicare for all and healthcare, let's talk about, healthcare, what happens when you locked up. A lot of people get their teeth pulled, come out with no teeth because they do not repair your teeth in prison. A lot of people don't know that. They just pull the teeth.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. A lot of people come out with digestive issues, having to get bags. Yeah, absolutely, because of the food. A lot of people come out having to get surgery. See, think about a lot of these men, or at least the ones that I know, not everybody, they weren't expecting to live to 40 and 50. So when you haven't had the mental health, the healthcare type of support, then you come out, with a lot of these issues that they just simply were not prepared for.
Right.
And that's missing in the healthcare conversation also.
And economically, you can't get a job in a lot of places because of your record.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And then when you do, again, learning how to just rob Peter to pay Paul, basic little things like that. How do you pay your bills weekly? If you were a hustler, you were kind of used to being able to pay everything all at one time. So there's little things that I've picked up just by my friends that I know that I think, should be talked about. And when I saw all of them, all 5 of them in wheelchairs at one time at rehab, all at the same time, and all know each other, Blood and Crips, old school, from 50 years old to 20, this is a real issue. And just seeing it, just visually seeing that, what does that mean? Men who are used to being aggressive and strong that now can't move, at all. So it's a hell of a concept. I hope, you would partner with me on that to talk more about that, because it's certainly something, that needs to get addressed.
So Benjamin Crump is representing the family of Donald Neely?
That's correct. He's representing the family of Donald Neely on the civil side. And so this is just the first step, of the process to say, one, we want to see the tapes. And again,
what is the point of taping things if they're not going to let people see it? Because isn't the point that now we can look and see what they apologized, right, for the optics of having him on ropes while they're on horses, and that looks awful. But then we don't really know the circumstances of what happened. We haven't been able to see these tapes of what went down. But isn't the point of that so that we can see it?
That's correct. And it should be a law that says that once. Now, if we committed a crime, the tapes would be released immediately. They have no problem releasing it when we're found, to be the one that did something wrong. So one, there should be a law that requires tapes get released in a certain amount of time for the public to be able to see, not the attorney, because you can release a tape to the attorney, but the attorney by law can't release it to the public. So the public should have an opportunity to see the tapes on any body cam video that's in question. So, that's an issue.
Did they have a bag over his head, too? I read that somewhere. They put a bag over his head, Donald Neely's head.
Based upon what I have saw, because I have not seen the tapes, but what I have saw, I did not see a bag over his head. And, like I tell people, just the rope is enough. Just walking somebody through the street is enough, because I don't want people to start seeing, if the tape comes out and they say, oh, he wasn't beat up or he wasn't shot, let's not take away from the fact that that's enough.
Like, that's humiliation and what that looks like as an example for people.
How do we know he's not getting taken advantage of, though? Because he's a homeless person who's mentally ill. So somebody hired him an attorney. Like, where was the family before? If the family had him out there homeless, like, why are they?
And I'm glad you answered that question, because it goes back again to the misconception that people have about Attorney Crump. He's not hired. These families don't pay Attorney Crump. That's what people.
Who's the family, though?
What do you mean?
Who's the family that went and got Crump for Donald Neely?
Well, they called and said, we need some help. And he came. And he just happened to be in Houston that same day. When I called him and said, Ben, do you see what's going on? He said, okay, well, let's, and the family called and we went. That was it. That's what people don't understand. These people call on Attorney Crump for this. He's not running around saying, hey, you need some help, and then he takes it upon himself. He goes, it takes years to get these cases settled. 9 times out of 10, most government entities have a cap on what they can award. In fact, I was just reading an article on the young lady that was in McKinney that was held down by the police officer several years ago. She was just awarded like $150,000. That's really not a lot when you look at, the issue in it in itself. So nobody pays him. He just does this just
Imagine
because
as a family, you don't have money and you're like, we need
help. I just
want
to make sure if Donald Neely wins this civil suit, he gets the money, he gets the help he needs.
I think Charlamagne was asking, where was his family before?
Yeah, where's the family?
Well,
if this same family that can hire him an attorney, where were they at when he was homeless?
Right. Well, based upon what I understand, and I don't want to get into deep to their family dynamics, but from what I understand, he's had sisters who have tried to take care of him over the years. He's had support. They've tried to put him in and out the hospital. He's really, really mentally ill.
So and he doesn't take medication, right?
Right. This is a guy that, when you sit there, he may run out the room. He may, he deals with some real
problems. I
I
see it a lot when I buy properties, when I buy real estate. A lot of times when we go in these houses, homeless people live there, and they come from good families, good areas, but they just don't want to be there. They're mentally ill, or they're having problems. Maybe they're bipolar, or maybe they're on drugs, and their family can't. And they try time and time again. Doesn't mean that they're bad people or their family doesn't care. It's just they try. There's
a high percentage of people who are homeless that have mental illnesses.
Yeah.
And he's getting help now, to answer your question a little bit more directly. And hopefully, I don't want to go too far in advance, but hopefully, whatever happens with it, that he'll be managed well. And we want to do our part to make sure that we're continuing this conversation. I don't really get into what they're doing or how they're going to do it, but it's important that we talk about, just how we're treating our homeless in general.
Right.
When's the march again? Tell them about the march, and where can they find information if they want to be a part of it?
Yes, it's on Sunday, September 15th at 4 p.m. at the George Seeley Pavilion in Galveston, Texas. You can visit galvestonmarch.com. It has all the information. We have over 50 people 50 organizers from all over the country that have helped. Paul Wall will be there too. I'm always glad to get some hip hop, in the mix. All of the pastors, and I'm hard on pastors all the time, but I love it when they do stand up for social justice. You can't separate Jesus and justice. You're either gonna be with both or none at all. So.
And the march is for awareness. Is it for?
It's justice
to drop
for
those
Donald
charges?
Neely.
Explain why.
It's the whole. It's the whole thing. One, we want the tape released, but if they release the tape Friday, guess what? We still marching. So I don't want to just put it on. Just release the tape.
Gotcha.
It's the entire thing. It's the policies. It's the procedures. It's how do we treat our mentally ill. It's how do we treat our homeless. Why do we humiliate somebody right around the corner from where the slaves got free? Got him looking like a runaway slave on Django.
Right.
It's the whole. That's what people said. It's like y'all on some Django shit in Texas. It's the whole entire thing. And so just mainly I want people to know we got to fight for the living too. A lot of people don't stand up when people have been shot, by the police, let alone this case. So I appreciate you guys having me because people just don't, they see it and they just move on, but you don't understand that the living who are left here to deal with whatever humiliation, the 13 women that were raped by Officer Halsclough still got mental issues. Donald Neely still gonna have mental issues. Monroe Bird, rest in peace, he still had mental issues in the hospital. And he would always say, that's my publicist when I would come. They don't have a lot of people that speak for them while they're living. They don't seem to matter, and so that's important.
Real quick before you go, I feel like I should know this. You still suing Bernie Sanders, or did that get settled?
I will tell it this way: there was a mutual agreement.
Okay.
So y'all can translate that however you want to.
Yeah.
And just for clarity, it was for racism, discrimination, with
wrongful
the
termination.
Organization. That's correct. And I'll just put it to you where y'all can go look it up and go look and see.
Is he for real?
Agreement.
Is Bernie Sanders for real? Because you used to work for him. Is he for real?
I think he's for real at being Bernie Sanders.
But is he for real for our people?
I mean, you want the truth?
Yes,
I mean,
ma'am.
I had issues. This has been documented several times, by past staffers, by current. I love the black surrogates they got. Love,
Nina Turner.
Yep, no question. I think she should run for president in 2024.
Absolutely.
But Bernie Sanders is going to Bernie Sanders. And he has yet, I don't care how you puppet him up or coach him up or get prepare him to speak, he's going to always be Bernie Sanders. And he does not see race the way we see race. This has been documented several times, not only just with myself, but several past black staffers. Some black staffers who work for other campaigns know damn well, I'm not going to say no names and no shade, but some people who work for other campaigns now know exactly why they work for other campaigns. They're just not.
Simone Sanders.
Yeah, I guess we can go ahead and say we're talking about Simone Sanders. We knew, that it was an issue on that campaign. She did an article in Essence saying that, she dealt with racism and it didn't have anything to do with the campaign. It was everybody else. Well, it kind of was people, in the campaign too. So, you're not going to hear people say that, Charlamagne, because people want jobs. They really do want to work, for these candidates again and again. I'm the only one out there that did something legally, to say, let's put it on the books. It's not about saying somebody's racist or trying to demonize somebody. But since we're on that subject, I got in trouble for saying more black people are incarcerated than those who were enslaved in 1850.
That's a fact, though.
That was a fact, and that was seen as anti-immigrant, and it's not. I'm just talking about black folks.
Right.
I'm going to continue to talk about black folks. I love everybody. I'm a Christian woman. I love everybody. But I still got to talk about black folks. And if you're going to hire me as the director of racial justice in the African American Outreach Department, then I mean that shit.
So is Bernie a racist, or just as some people in his campaign at the time were? He don't strike me as a racist.
I don't want to say racist.
She just said he doesn't see race the same way that
he just doesn't
we
see it the way he sees it as class.
Yeah.
I mean, just bottom line is who he is. This man is damn near 80.
Yeah.
Do you know any 80-year-old that changes up at 80?
Absolutely not. I get what you're saying, because no matter how rich a black person is, it'll be a white man that still sees you as a nigga.
Yeah, I mean, he just is who he is. I'm not saying he doesn't understand institutional racism. I'm not saying he doesn't understand that there's a difference between black people and how white people are treated. I'm saying that he believes that class and income is the equalizer.
And that's not the
that's just not the case.
True. No.
It's not that he doesn't recognize those things, but it's just not. It's not the equalizer. And a lot of these candidates, to be quite honest with you, don't see it as well. My issue is just, if you're gonna have me to do black shit, I'm gonna do black shit. But a lot of these people who work for these campaigns, they just don't. They want the next job. They want the next opportunity. It's a lot of sacrifice that come with this, guys. I mean, you get blackballed. You don't get another opportunity. You can't work on another campaign. You pretty much just Ubering. pretty much. I mean, you got to be prepared to Uber when you call out.
I don't know why somebody should hire you. Like, I don't know why Senator Harris' team don't reach out to you.
Well, I'm not interested in being hired. You know, I kind of like being able to stay on this
about
microphone.
things.
Absolutely.
Right.
I like this
I
microphone.
agree with that.
This microphone hired me because that means I'm going to be able to
I'm
say.
not with any one person.
That's it. I can drag whoever, say whatever, you know, cuss at anybody. I can say
But they
fuck
need
Willie
to be
Brown.
dragged
I
too,
can say-
even if you on their campaign.
But see, that don't
can't
work
do
that
that.
way.
That's not how
When you're
you-
a surrogate, you ride for them, period. When you're a spokesperson, you ride for them, period. That's why you got these folks out here spinning everything.
Yeah.
You know,
That's their
every
job.
time they come out and say something, they got to spin it. They got to go. I'm the best at spin, but I don't want to have to do that for somebody. I can't. My soul won't allow me to do that. Everybody got to sleep on their own pillow at night is what I tell people. I understand we have to have people inside the system, inside campaigns. I get that. I'm not dissing nobody who's worked for a campaign. It's just not for me.
Do you feel like you'll support whoever the nominee is, the Democratic nominee?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to get Trump out of office, period.
Right.
Even if I supported any of his policies, he's made it like impossible to support anything that he's for because it's just too damn chaotic.
But it's not happening simply because, like, we know our democracy is compromised, and the Democrats won't even talk about that. They won't talk about the fact that there was Russian interference. They won't talk about voter suppression. They won't talk about Mitch McConnell blocking the election security bill. And when you ask them about it, they'll say, well, we don't want to discourage voters from voting in 2020. So you rather just lie to the people?
Pretty much that's what politicians do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they do. You find some good, you find some good things done by default, but ultimately that's what they do.
They hoping to win in a landslide in 2020. That ain't happening.
It may not happen. I would be surprised if it don't. And I'm not saying that saying I support Trump. You know, people to change that up and say you say no. I'm just telling you the facts. You know, this is a process that's been going on for the last decade. Where Democrats have dropped the ball. That's why Andrew Gilliam couldn't win in Florida.
Yeah.
So there's more than just one cycle. You know, that will repair what we're dealing with when we talk about supporting Democratic candidates from the bottom up. In the state level, local level. And then these candidates got to get real, too. I mean, these candidates, you can't keep bullshitting people. I mean, at the end of the day, somebody going to vet it. They gonna put you to the test. People asking questions now.
That's
so
right.
That's just where we at with it.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you for joining us.
Tell them where to follow
September
you, Taz.
15th is the march.
Yes, September 15th is March, Sunday, 4 p.m. You can catch me on Twitter, Instagram, Tezlyn Figaro, Tezlyn Figaro.
All right,
Thanks
it's the
for having
Breakfast
me.
Club. Good morning.